This great doctor today believes your demons make you do what the demons enjoy, and that those that enjoy horror movies showing death and torture are extremely possessed by these demons that are all about torture and death of humans on earth. Right, so I alluded to this earlier on, and I agree with this. Um, the reason why people enjoy this type of thing, at least I'll speak to us as Israelites, is that we're infested with these parasites, and thus facilitate these demons. And on two levels, you have the parasites and the demons feeding off of those emotions that you get. I'll speak to a carnal level. The parasites, when you experience those emotions while watching those horror movies, those chemical secretions when you're watching violence and all these other things that have measurable impacts on the human body, the parasites are benefiting from those chemicals that are being secreted. They're essentially using you to harvest those chemicals. Edomite cannibals do it as well, but that's another topic. He goes on to explain how belly fat, right, mentioned that before. A little bit more, there's a few steps obviously involved there, but in a nutshell, yeah. Why? Question mark. Because belly fat is something that does not belong on the human body. Correct. To a degree, obviously, right? All of medical degrees, no human really should weigh more than 165 pounds if they are 6 foot tall male. No, I don't agree with this. It's not totally clear what he's saying, and this doesn't make sense. This is going to be dependent on race. I mean, again, we as a people are much heavier, much better, much stronger than the other nations. I mean, we're the chosen nation, right? So our bodies are stronger, our brains have greater capacity than they do, although we've been reduced to this low state, right? The Israelites are much more muscular, they're just superior in every way to the other nations. So this general medical info, it's just not going to be relevant here. The accumulations that make a person weigh more than 165 do not get garbage. They don't know what they're talking about. Everything that accumulates feeds the worms. Okay, probably within, to a degree. All humans realize they are possessed or driven spiritually at times and do things they really did not want to. Totally. I've totally been there. I think a lot of people can relate to doing something and afterwards they're like, why did I do that? Or, it's like they were on like a one-track mind, not even realizing that. Although it's not the parasites, I'm not going to go in far as saying the parasites are forcing you to take the action. You have to, there's some level of agreement that has to go on in your mind before the parasites can fully kind of take over in that regard. Totally the case. That's why, in the scriptures it speaks about the importance of separation, because even if you're, sort of flirting with wickedness, that is sometimes enough, enough consent, you could say, for the parasites to kind of start manufacturing the chemicals that they need to start having a greater and greater influence over your behavior. I hope that makes sense. If people have questions about that, please do send questions. I know I'm glossing over a lot here. But if I need to come back to that, I will. It's so hard to describe. It's not necessarily that the parasites need consent, but some process in your brain has to go through and reach the result that, yeah, I'm going to do this, or it's fine for me to do this, or I don't care, I'm going to do this. at least this is kind of what I've experienced on a carnal level. On a spiritual level, I think then we're getting more into areas of consent, but I'm trying to keep it more on a carnal level and understand the physical processes that are going on. Again, ultimately, what's going on here, this is all chemical secretions. And so the interaction of which I believe triggers parasites to start secreting chemicals once you are ready to go through with sin. When caught, all humans realize they are possessed or driven spiritually at times and do things they really did not want to. When caught or think about when they're caught or think about it later, some will say the devil made me do it. Yeah, meaning they really did not like what they did. Totally. Prisons are full of people that were possessed or prompted to do something that landed them in trouble with the government. Right. So here, this is kind of a reference to crime of passion. So when people experience such intense emotions, I'm going to posit that they may not have a high level of parasites compared to people that are much more wicked than them. But those such extreme emotions, we'll say hatred, for instance, is enough to give those parasites control over their body. To a point where the person's hatred brings them to a certain point, and then the parasites can continue it down that path. Again, I hope that makes sense. For instance, like if a man, I'll leave it at crimes of passion. The good doctors conclude the human body is a vessel that is influenced by many things, and they use their toxic drugs to do just that, influence the body. Okay? Poisons directly influence the body just as worm poop and worm hormones influence your body nonstop. Yes, humans are poisoned endlessly. Right, these worms, they're in the body, they're constantly secreting garbage to control your behavior. It's nonstop, 24 hours a day. No wonder so many lose control of their functions in mind and can't remember their own name the last 5 years of life. Right, so that's a reference to Alzheimer's. But this affects us on a much lesser, I'm not even going to say it's on a lesser scale, but it might take someone that's normally very pious and now they're living a life that's focused around money or carnal things, where without the presence of those parasites, that person would otherwise be very, very spiritual. But the parasites come in and interfere and make them focus on carnal things. We live in a world now where no one would say there's anything wrong with that person. They're just living a normal life. But for instance, in the kingdom, to us, that would be a very clear indication that person is at least on a carnal level, saturated with parasites. Demons could easily, in fact, be considered everything that is inside you that harms you. Not quite. No one wants to admit what they see in the mirror because they have watched themselves become overwhelmed with the accumulations that has aged them, harmed them, and driven them to do bad things. This fact has led the doctors killing people at least 6 months prematurely in education to get people to ask for medical assisted suicide. Okay, so he's kind of going off into a different direction here. Remember, torture, death, murder would be true signs of demonic possession, right? Killing unborn babies, that's abortion, would be an extreme example of murder on a demonic level of biblical magnitude. Well, all murder, of course, is. Of course, there are penalties of death that are described in the Bible, and those are righteous. At least one doctor that has been deworming humans for 40 years believes worms are the demons. Again, this person has some understanding, but they don't obviously get everything. Worms, I'm going to say the worms aren't the demons, but it's the physical counterpart. So they're very closely related. How powerful are the thousands, millions of parasites inside you? Diet correction, removing poisons from your life, learning orange juice fasting, learning about deworming herbs, and seeking to exterminate the bad things living inside you should be the goal of all humans, right? The dying, well, seeking the Most High for the elect. The dying are an example of being overwhelmed with poisons, and toxic parents have toxic, deformed babies. Creates people with so many problems in life. Right, as I alluded to before, these are passed down through generations, as are demons. Clearly there's a connection there. But all can choose to live better. Just the removal of worms can make a huge difference, and the reduction of poisons should extend life greatly. Absolutely. Humans and actually all living things were born into a war zone. Plants, trees, everything fights for a space to live. Well, Edomites, that's the Edomite paradigm. This is probably written by an Edomite. Humans are no different, and they are at war externally. No, not humans, Edomites. This is what Edomites say. They'll say, well, it's humans are at war endlessly. No, it's you Edomites that are at war endlessly, nonstop, and externally their entire lifetime. Humans want to believe, Edomites want to believe they are the drivers of their body and that their body is not them. They want to believe they are a spiritual being that is just a bad control of the body. Yahawah supplied for them. They know they have abused their body, mostly because their parents abused their body, and they are just the end result of nothing but centuries of abusing the human body. As a result, they come from families of misery. They do not know anything different. They were born into the same worms, and that their family was born with for thousands of years. Yeah, this is hitting on a lot of truth. As the world becomes more toxic via pollution and various other man-created and natural reasons, the human must take care of their body more than ever, yes, because the war has become great and those that ignore the war easily succumb. Modern-day politics, wars are proof humans are humans' greatest enemies. Well, Edomites are humanity's greatest enemies. Again, this is, kind of how Edomites like to spin it, but it's really they are the problem. Same as with most species. It is your fellow species seeking to harm all others so they have more space to live. Edomites. A dog-eat-dog existence. Edomites want to believe they are better, but history proves otherwise. Edomites hurt humans more than all else. Just replace humans and Edomites, and this is actually quite accurate. Worms feast on the deformed. Everything that nature wants dead feeds the worms. Right, as I alluded to a while back, that it was insects that were destroying the weaker plants but leaving the healthy ones untouched. What controls humans is surely the largest subject in human history, and year after year they continue to discover more and more human parasites, literally hundreds of thousands of various parasites living inside the human body. Your blood and your blood alone is what controls the health of your body. Healthy blood declares war against all bad things. Herbs aid by way of supplying nutrients, and also, the scriptures refer to, I'm not going to pull the scriptures, but there's laws against us consuming blood for this reason. Because if the blood of animals has parasites in it, that's a very quick way for you to acquire them. Herbs and why you have to, meat needs to be fully cooked. Herbs aid by way of supplying nutrients for the blood to create strong bones and flesh, along with the sun's energy and every breath of the air, right? The sun is very important. It's very important for us as Israelites to make sure we are getting a lot of sun. All correct foods are herbs of the tree and plants. Every bad choice ends in more parasites mentally and physically. Yes, call them demons, call them what you like. They are freeloaders that eventually lead to your death, and I've explained the understanding of this, and that it's more nuanced than what's being written here. Heavy metals accumulate and kill over time, yes, and provide a great environment for parasites. The more heavy metals you have means your bones are affected, your flesh affected, and the worms feast. Yes,